Hi, I'm Carol, and I'm a former air traffic controller now working on a plan to upgrade Britain's skies with ACOG, the Airspace Change Organising Group. Can you imagine still using a rotary telephone today instead of your smartphone? Or a typewriter instead of your computer? Well, that's essentially what's happening up above our heads in Britain's airspace, where many of the routes that planes are using around airports are still the same as they were when they were designed back in the 1950s. This means that planes are often having to fly further than needed, which uses more fuel and creates unnecessary emissions, which isn't good for the environment. It also means our skies are becoming increasingly congested, which results in delays for millions of passengers. These are only going to get worse if nothing changes. The good news is there's a plan to improve all that. In this presentation, I'm going to explain a bit more about the plan to upgrade Britain's skies, how it works, and why it's vital for the UK. At ACOG, our role is to coordinate the redesign of flight paths around airports as part of the government's overall vision to modernise airspace. To do this, we've been working on something called the Airspace Change Master Plan, with a bunch of airports around the country, as well as the UK's main air traffic control service provider, NATS. But before we get to that, it's worth looking at the basics of how flights in UK airspace currently operate. Now, for most of us, air travel seems relatively simple. We buy a ticket, we take our seat, and then we start thinking about what we're going to eat or which films we're going to watch on the flight. But it's complicated. UK airspace is some of the busiest in the world, and when it was designed, it was never envisaged that it would need to cope with the volume of flights we have today, over 2.5 million a year. And while in the UK we have an exceptional aviation safety record, which we need to maintain, our airspace is now outdated, inefficient, and reaching capacity. It's definitely time for an upgrade. What most people don't know is that the original flight paths were designed based on the location of a series of ground-based beacons used by planes to navigate. You can still see many of these today lurking in fields around the UK. The way the routes were designed also factored in the limitations of older aircraft. For example, how quickly they could climb or turn. When I was working as an air traffic controller, a lot of my time was spent talking to pilots, keeping aircraft safe distances apart. I could be directing more than 10 planes at a time and dealing with up to 50 flights an hour. That's a lot of talking and a lot to concentrate on. Today, modern aircraft are not only more advanced in terms of their flying capabilities, but also their navigation technology. This technology is not dissimilar to what most of us use every day on our sat-nav and smartphones. The airspace upgrade will help to reduce the workload for air traffic controllers in busy sections of airspace near airports, thanks to more accurate route tracking and spacing between flights. So now I've explained a little bit more about how airspace works and why we need to upgrade it, I'm going to tell you more about the process used to achieve this. There's lots of policy and guidance on how to change airspace in the UK, which can be found on the Civil Aviation Authority website. The starting point for this programme of change is the guiding vision set out by the Civil Aviation Authority and the Department for Transport, called the Airspace Modernisation Strategy. The strategy effectively sets out that modernisation needs to achieve three main technical outcomes: a new route network for climbing and descending flights in busy lower airspace below 7,000 feet, the removal of outdated routes in the airspace above 7,000 feet, and a new integrated airspace structure where permanently controlled airspace is minimised and other areas are managed on a demand basis. Our work at ACOG focuses on coordinating changes in what's called controlled airspace around airports and up to 7,000 feet, and NATS are responsible for changes above this. However, there are also areas of uncontrolled airspace used by recreational flyers, for example light aircraft and hot air balloons, and also emergency service helicopters. Within these uncontrolled areas, pilots mainly choose their own route while complying with a series of safety rules. Changing airspace is particularly complicated in the UK, as many airports share their airspace with neighbouring airports. That's where ACOG come in. Proposed changes from airports need to be coordinated, and that's what we've been asked to do. A proposed change at one airport might have an impact on another one nearby, which would need to be addressed. Or a change to make a route more fuel efficient might mean more people are impacted by noise from the aircraft. These effects need to be assessed and balanced. ACOG organised these changes in line with government policy, helping to knit together the individual airport changes required to upgrade the UK's airspace. So we're doing this through the development of the Airspace Change Master Plan that I mentioned earlier. Over time, the Master Plan will provide detailed information on the airspace change proposals under development. These are considered strategically important for the UK because they make a significant contribution to delivering the government's airspace modernisation objectives of quicker, quieter and cleaner flights. It's important to note that although we're developing the master plan, ACOG is not responsible for designing new routes. This is the responsibility for each individual airport. As the airspace change proposals mature, the airports will contact local communities to show the plan, consult on the impacts and take your feedback. This programme has more than 20 airports involved, as well as NATS. To ensure the programme progresses as quickly as possible, the airports have been grouped into 4 clusters based on their location. These are the West, Manchester, which includes a number of airports in the north, Scotland, and the London area. The first cluster to make changes will be Scotland. This involves airport route changes at Edinburgh and Glasgow, alongside higher level changes led by NATS. Of course, you're a big part of this change too. Edinburgh and Glasgow airports are planning to consult on their proposed changes next year, and the higher level change proposals will be available to see through the CAA website. This will be an opportunity for local residents and other interested stakeholders to help influence the final designs. And of course, we'll keep you updated on the programme as it delivers the airspace changes around the country. This will include the changes for the airports in Manchester, in London, and in the West. I hope you found this information useful in helping to understand airspace and the reasons for change. You can see that upgrading the UK's skies is a massive challenge and involves coordinating with lots of different industry stakeholders working together to make it happen. I hope you can also see why the upgrades are necessary. Just imagine if our roads and railways hadn't been upgraded since the 1950s, or we were communicating using typewriters and home telephones. Technology has moved on dramatically since those times, and we need to utilise the advanced way modern aircraft operate and navigate to get rid of the outdated ground infrastructure. The benefits of modernising our skies are clear. More efficient flight routes, fewer emissions per flight, the opportunity to improve noise impacts, and reducing congestion and delays. As a former air traffic controller working in the complex airspace over London, I've seen firsthand just how busy the UK's skies can be. I've also experienced the problems caused by our outdated and inefficient airspace, so it's time to make sure that our airspace is fit for the future. So if you want to find out more, please check out the One Sky One Plan website and follow ACOG on Twitter or LinkedIn.